Hello dear students. Today we will be discussing about the second disease condition in endocrine disorder, that is growth hormone deficiency in children. So in the name itself it is very clear which hormone is deficient. So it is growth hormone and it is produced from the pituitary gland. So we can see the introductory part of growth hormone deficiency in children. So it is the most common pituitary hormone deficiency in children. So in pituitary gland abnormality, it is the most common among children. And it can be seen as isolated or accompanied by deficiency of other pituitary hormones. So single growth hormone deficiency, isolated one, can be seen, and it can be seen along with other hormone deficiencies like other pituitary hormone deficiencies. So this is the regarding growth hormone deficiency, and it is typically results in abnormally slow growth and short stature with normal proportions. So the proportions will be normal, like upper and lower proportions will be normal. The lower extremity, upper extremity, trunk, everything, the proportions will be normal, but there will be short stature and slow growth. So this is known as the growth hormone deficiency. And usually the diagnosis is involving the measurement of pituitary hormone level, CT, MRI, to detect the structural pituitary abnormalities of or brain tumors. And like diagnosis is multifactorial, like we can say that different factors we will be considering when we are talking about growth hormone deficiency, and the treatment is usually the specific hormone replacement and removal of causative tumor, or if it is a tumor we have to remove that, or otherwise we will go with the growth hormone replacement. Okay, so this is the pituitary gland and the production of various hormones. So we know that the hypothalamus, you have to see in the top, hypothalamus will be producing the hypothalamic hormones, the stimulating hormones, and it will be acting on anterior pituitary and the posterior pituitary to produce its hormones. So anterior pituitary produces growth hormone and it acts on muscles, bones and different organs. Okay. Next is the prolactin, it on breast to produce breast milk. Then it is producing and it is acting on producing luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, and it acts on ovaries and testes to produce estrogen, progesterone in females and in testosterone in male. Another hormone, it is ACTH, that is adrenocorticotropic hormone. It acts on adrenal cortex to produce cortical hormones. Then again the TSH, that is thyroid stimulating hormone, is produced, and thyroid gland produces thyroid hormones. The posterior pituitary, it is acting on kidney, like vasopressin is produced, and another one is oxytocin, and it is acting on uterus and breast. So it is the contraction of the breast and uterus happens. Contraction of the breast helps in ejection of breast milk. So these are the various hormones, and among this, the first hormone is the growth hormone, which is acting on bones, muscles, organs, and the growth happens in the child. So this growth hormone deficiency can be seen isolated, or it can be seen along with any other hormone deficiencies also. So this is about the introductory part of growth hormone deficiency. So patients with growth hormone deficiency associated with generalized hypopituitarism, that is any of these pituitary gland hormones are deficient, that is panhypopituitarism, will also have deficiency of one or more Other pituitary hormones may be follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, adrenocorticotrophic hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, antidiuretic hormone. So that is the generalized hypopituitarism will be there along with the growth hormone deficiency, or it can be a primary, that is pituitary disorder, or secondary to interference with hypothalamic secretion of specific hormone that control anterior pituitary hormone production. So we can say that it is a pituitary disorder, or it can be another disorder of hypothalamus which is stimulating the pituitary gland to produce its hormone. So hope you are clear. Like hormone deficiency, growth hormone deficiency can be an associated one with other pituitary hormones, or it can be a primary disorder like pituitary gland disorder can be leading to this growth hormone deficiency, or it can be an hypothalamic problem which is producing like lack of stimulating hormone to pituitary gland. So these are the some of the reasons of our growth hormone deficiency. Regarding the incidence, usually isolated one can be there like in 1 in 4,000 or 1 in 10,000 children. We can see the isolated growth hormone deficiency can be seen. Regarding the etiology, growth hormone deficiency can occur in isolation or in association with generalized hypopituitarism. So already we have discussed the same. So it can be in isolation or in association with general hypopituitarism. Growth hormone deficiency may be acquired or congenital. Growth hormone deficiency can be acquired or congenital, like it can be a newborn problem, like acquired condition can be there, or it can be a congenital reasons like genetic disorders can lead to this congenital growth hormone deficiency. Rarely growth hormone is not deficient, but the growth hormone receptors are abnormal. So in some conditions like etiology, it may not be deficient. The growth hormone is not deficient, but the receptor sites are abnormal. Like insensitivity can be there. So these are the etiological factors, and we can see isolated growth hormone deficiency. It is usually idiopathic. The reason we don't know. But in 25% of patients, it can have an identifiable etiology. So congenital causes like abnormalities of the growth hormone releasing hormone receptor, growth hormone 1 gene, and certain CNS malformations like central nervous system malformations, we can see this growth hormone deficiency. And acquired causes can be therapeutic radiation of the CNS, like in high dose radiation for any other reasons can lead to generalized hypopituitarism, then meningitis, histiocytosis, brain injury, and radiation of the spine, either prophylactic or therapeutic, may further impair the growth potential of the vertebrae and further jeopardize height gain. So these are some of the reasons of growth hormone deficiency. Like congenital causes are there, like genetic and other receptor problems can be there, and also some CNS malformations also can lead to growth hormone deficiency, and some acquired causes are also there, like therapeutic radiation of brain or any the vertebrae or any other parts can be there, and also meningitis, histiocytosis, brain injury. These all can lead to growth hormone deficiency. So in total you have to understand that pituitary gland abnormalities and also the CNS and other system abnormalities can lead to growth hormone deficiency, and also in some vertebrae and other bone problems also can see the growth abnormalities can be seen. So this is about the isolated growth hormone deficiency, congenital and acquired. Okay, generalized hypopituitarism, may have genetic causes. In some genetic conditions, we can have this generalized hypopituitarism, and like it is affecting the cells of pituitary gland, and there also may be anomalies of other organ systems, particularly midline defects such as cleft palate, septo-optic dysplasia. In these all conditions also we can see the generalized hypopituitarism, and along with that you can expect some amount of growth hormone deficiency also. So this is about the isolated reasons for growth hormone deficiency and the generalized reasons for hypopituitarism, and which is leading to growth hormone deficiency. So in some lesions of hypothalamus also you can see generalized hypopituitarism, that is impairing the secretion of releasing hormones or pituitary. Like examples are tumors, infections and infiltrative disorders. So when it is affecting the hypothalamus, generally it will be affecting the general hypopituitarism. Generalized pituitarism, hypopituitarism can be there when it is affecting the hypothalamus generally. So it can be like any tumors, craniopharyngioma, infections like TB, toxoplasmosis, meningitis, and any infiltrative disorders. So the combination of lytic lesions of the bone, skull and diabetes insipidus such as Langerhans cells histiocytosis. So these all can lead to generalized hypopituitarism, and in turn it affects the growth hormone deficiency. So this is about the etiology of growth hormone deficiency. So generally we have to understand that it can be a congenital cause or it can be a acquired cause, and it can see in isolation or it can be seen in generalized hypopituitarism. So next we can see the signs and symptoms. So manifestations of growth hormone deficiency depends on the patient's age, the underlying etiology and the specific hormone deficiencies. So these are the manifestations of growth hormone deficiency that it can be considered, we have to consider when we are collecting the history of a patient. It can be like patient's age, it can be based on the etiology, or it can be based on the hormone deficiencies. Okay. So we can see the growth hormone deficiency. So it is typically manifest as growth failure, sometimes along with delay in the tooth development. So it can be growth hormone deficiency can be the like short stature, growth is not adequately gaining, and usually the associated tooth delay or tooth development delay also can be seen along with this growth hormone deficiency. So usually when you are charting the height and weight in a growth chart, the height is below the third percentile, and growth velocity, the weight or the height gain, it will be less than 6 centimeter per year before age 4 years, less than 5 centimeter per year from age 4 to 8 years, and less than 4 centimeter per year before puberty. So this is about the height gain will be, height velocity will be less. Okay. Then child with hypopituitarism retains normal proportionality between upper and lower segments, lower body segments. So when you are observing the child, the upper and lower proportions will be normal. The skeletal maturation assessed by bone age determination is more than 2 years behind chronological age. Okay, so it can be considered like more than 2 years it will be behind the chronological age. The bone age will be inappropriate. Okay, so other abnormalities also may be present depending upon the underlying defect, and the child may have delayed or absent pubertal development. Okay, so other abnormalities also can be there, especially the reproductive growth of the child will be delayed. Then weight gain may be out of proportion to growth, resulting in relative obesity. So weight gain will be out of proportion, and in some situation there will be obesity can be there, or it can be abnormal. Then height gain will be less. The neonates who have congenital defects of the pituitary or hypothalamus may have hypoglycemia, midline defects like cleft palate or micropenis, as well as manifestations of other endocrine deficiencies. So the neonates will have congenital defects. So along with growth hormone deficiency, there will be other multiple problems can be seen, especially in congenital growth hormone deficiency. So regarding the diagnosis, unlike in any or in many endocrine deficiencies in which hormone levels are diagnostic, here the random growth hormone levels are of little use in diagnosing growth hormone deficiency. So we have to consider that the single growth hormone level is not indicating the growth hormone deficiency. Like in normally in thyroid gland abnormality, we will be taking the T3, T4 levels or TSH levels. It is indicating the growth that hormone deficiency, like thyroid gland hormone deficiency. So in such a diagnostic measure is usually not followed in growth hormone deficiency. So we have to go with the clinical evaluation including the growth criteria and other medical history. So we have to take the medical history, we have to take the growth chart of the child, and a medical history is very important in growth hormone deficiency. Imaging studies are done, and another 2-3 factors are insulin like growth factor 1 and insulin like growth factor binding protein. Insulin IGF, insulin like growth factor binding protein. So that is IGF-1 and IGF-BP3. So these are another important factors in diagnosis of growth hormone deficiency, and usually will be confirmed by provocative testing. Provocative testing, that is, we will be stimulating the production of growth hormone by anti-pituitary. Okay, that is provocative testing can be done, and evaluation of other pituitary hormones and for other causes of poor growth. So usually we are not seeing the growth hormone alone, we will be identifying the other hormone levels also to see the generalized hypopituitarism. So this is about the diagnosis. So we have to understand that a random GH level is not indicating of growth hormone deficiency. We should have a proper history collection, imaging studies to be done, then IGF-1, BP3, IGF-BP3 and provocative testing is done, and also we will be doing the assessment of other hormones of the pituitary gland also. So in the guidelines of diagnosis of growth hormone deficiency, there are integration of these 4 criteria. So when you are making a diagnosis, these criteria to be monitored, like growth criteria, medical history, laboratory testing and imaging studies or imaging results. So growth is assessed like data for height and weight should be plotted on a growth chart for all children. So whenever we are observing a growth hormone deficiency or observing for that, it should be plotted properly in WHO guidelines. We should follow to chart the growth of the child. Height and weight we have to plot in the growth chart. And if it is in less than 3rd percentile, we have to suspect growth hormone deficiency. The next one is measurement of IGF-1 and IGF-BP3 levels. So what we have to do is IGF-1 reflects growth hormone activity, and IGF-BP3 is the major carrier of IGF peptides. So this is the importance of this insulin like growth factor. Okay. So level of IGF-1 and IGF-BP3 are measured because growth hormone levels are pulsatile, highly variable and difficult to interpret. Okay. IGF-1 levels vary by age and should be interpreted relative to born age rather than to chronological age. So IGF-1 level we will be assessing to the born age, not to the chronological age of the child. IGF-1 levels are lowest in infancy and early childhood, less than 5 years it will be very low, and thus do not reliably discriminate between normal and subnormal levels in this age group. So usually we will be taking this IGF level after 5 years because normally it is low level less than 5 years. Okay, so we cannot make a proper diagnosis during less than 5 years based on IGF-1 value. Then IGF-BP3 levels, like it can be assessed in lower age also because it is not affected by undernutrition, and the discrimination between normal and subnormal levels can be done in younger children also. And at puberty, IGF-1 levels rise and normal levels help exclude growth hormone deficiency. So low IGF-1 levels in older children suggest growth hormone deficiency. So we have to understand that IGF-1 level will be assessed in older children and IGF-BP3 levels will be assessed in younger children. So this is the criteria of this IGF-1 and IGF-BP3. So IGF-1 levels are low in conditions other than growth hormone deficiency also. So that also we have to remember. So in psychosocial deprivation, undernutrition, celiac disease, hypothyroidism, in these all conditions also we can see IGF-1 level will be low. So these conditions we have to understand, and we have to understand the values of IGF-1. And IGF-BP3 is better option because it is not affected in these all conditions, and also in younger children also we will be getting a good result with IGF-BP3 test. In children with low level of IGF-1 and IGF-BP3, growth hormone deficiency is usually confirmed by measuring growth hormone levels. So a basal growth hormone levels are typically low or undetectable. So except after the onset of sleep. So normally we will be taking the IGF-1 and IGF-BP3, and we will be referring with growth hormone level also. So through these tests we can have a confirmation on growth hormone deficiency. So imaging studies are done when growth is abnormal, and born age should be determined from an X-ray of the left hand. So usually imaging studies are done to calculate the born age of the child, and in growth hormone deficiency, skeletal maturation is usually delayed to the same extent as height. So usually skeletal maturation is usually delayed in growth hormone deficiency, so that can be studied by the imaging studies of the child. And with growth hormone deficiency, evaluating the pituitary gland and hypothalamus with MRI is indicated to rule out the calcifications, tumors and any other structural abnormalities. So usually the importance of imaging study is for assessing the bone age, and also to understand any other brain lesions, hypothalamus lesions and pituitary gland lesions. So this is about the imaging studies. Okay. The next is screening laboratory tests are done to look for other possible causes of poor growth like hypothyroidism, renal disorders, inflammatory and immune conditions and hematological disorders. So these are the other screening laboratory test usually we will be done along with other growth hormone and IGF-1, IGF-BP3 test. These tests also can be done to screen the child for any other reasons. Okay. So the diagnosis is little bit big. And the another one is genetic testing, because we know that in congenital growth hormone deficiencies there are some genetic reasons which is leading to this growth hormone deficiency. So in that condition we will be doing this genetic testing, and physical findings or growth pattern differs significantly from family. So if there is any family differences, we have to go with the genetic testing. And if growth hormone deficiency is highly suspected, additional test of pituitary hormone function is also done, like ACTH, ATM, cortisol level, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, prolactin levels, etc. Then provocative testing, already we have discussed regarding provocative testing. So we are provoking the production of growth hormone. So that type of test is also done, like growth response of the child's body along with this growth hormone provocation, whether it is producing when we are provocating, that we are testing, that also can be done in growth hormone deficiency. Okay, and based on these all things we will be identifying the hormone replacement therapy for the child. So the treatment is recombinant growth hormone supplements are given. Sometimes other pituitary hormone replacement is also needed, because in generalized pituitary gland or pituitary hormone deficiency, other hormone replacement is also indicated, and recombinant growth hormone is indicated for all children with short stature who have documented growth hormone deficiency. So dosing is usually 0.03 to 0.05 milligram per kilogram sub-Q once a day. With therapy, height velocity often increases to 10 to 12 centimeter per year in the first year, and although it increases more slowly thereafter, remains above pre-treatment rates. Therapy is continued until an acceptable height is reached or growth rate falls below 2.5 centimeter per year. So this is about the treatment of growth hormone. So dose is 0.03 to 0.05 milligram per kilogram, and after reaching a particular velocity, therapy will be discontinued. So that is about the treatment of growth hormone replacement. So generally the nursing care or nursing care is needed for a long term period, and we will be monitoring the child, and also we have to give a proper support for the child when the child is receiving this growth hormone replacements. So thank you for the kind viewing. Thank you very much.